I spent years trapped thinking I'd found a way out, an escape from the pain. It was all just a cruel illusion I barely survived. If only I knew then what I understand now about depression before I ever touched a single thing to try to kill the pain. Having dealt with depression for 25 years of my life, these are the things I know and do now to deal with it that I wish I knew so much sooner. A huge one is just knowing that it's not my fault, that I'm not doomed, that there doesn't have to be a valid reason for my depression. It can just show up unexpected, unannounced. There could be zero logic behind it. There's a lot of factors at play, including genetics, environment, nutrition, movement. So because I can't control my genetics, that's the hand I was dealt. I can feel empowered knowing there are other things I can do to control the other factors or to influence them in a way that will be much more towards my benefit. So let me give a few examples. For me, one of the first things that happens when I feel depressed is almost always it's in the morning, and it's the feeling that I just can't get out of bed. I feel so tired. I feel indifferent. I feel like there's just nothing that is going to pull me out of bed. There's no reason compelling enough to where I feel I can get out of bed. So that's the first obstacle I face with my depression. And when I was in my early 20s, the solution was simple. Close the blinds, the blackout curtains, let no light in, and just go into like a deep hibernation, 20 plus hours. Sleep it off, essentially. Just keep sleeping until I feel better. And I guess in a way that solution it made a lot of sense, because when I'm sleeping, I don't feel anything, so I don't feel the pain of the depression. Back then, I was in my teens and 20s, so that actually I could do that. I could get away with that, except it wasn't the best solution because it would get in the way of me being able to hold down steady employment, and I became unreliable, and friends and family didn't understand why I would just disappear. I wouldn't answer the phone. I wouldn't return any phone calls. It was like I just kind of fell off the map for a few days, and that worried people. Then I would sort of feel the shame or guilt around this thing that nobody knew about, and I didn't have a name for it yet. I didn't know it was depression, but it just seemed to have this power and control over me. So now what I do is I just don't allow that to be an acceptable behavior. Like, it's just not allowed. If I don't feel like getting up, I get up anyway. And as simple as that sounds, it's very profound, because by taking that first step against the thing that feels like it's sort of falling down on me, taking away all of my power and my ability, by just doing that one thing that's kind of like fighting back against it, that sets the tone for the day. That gives me a bit of confidence to know, yeah, like, I'm doing this, I'm going to fight against this. I get that there's probably a lot of similarities between this that I'm talking about today and combating brain damage, which was the last video I made. But this is specific to depression, so I am going to cover it. I know, to somebody that doesn't deal with debilitating bouts of depression, it's like, getting out of bed? Really? You struggle to get out of bed? We all struggle to get out of bed. We're tired in the morning. No, this is different. As I've dealt with it over the years, my depression in the early days, it was just sort of this thing I could sleep off. But then as I got older, it became more dangerous, and the thoughts became more dark, and I did survive several suicide attempts, thank God. But ignoring it or acting like it's not there doesn't help at all. As I went along further with my depression, it's a lot more severe than just feeling tired or feeling like you don't want to do anything. It's not a lazy thing. It's an invisible mental war. This thing is capable of convincing myself that I deserve to die, and I will be better off dead if I don't actively do things to fight back against it. So that's the type of depression I'm talking about. So once I'm out of bed, that already has me feeling like, not that the depression is not there, but I feel a little bit confident against it, like that I feel a little bit better that I'm doing something for myself. So I want to keep with that pace. And I'm self employed, so I'm very fortunate in that way. And maybe I was meant to be self employed because of these mental struggles. It would be very hard to work with an employer with these things. So for instance, when I get out of bed and I'm feeling really, really depressed, I try to keep the goals very realistic for the day, but I don't just get to chill on the couch and binge Netflix because that's only going to make me feel worse, and I know that from doing it. I know that I'm not going to binge eat a bunch of Reese's, sweets, cookie cake, donuts, because those are going to make me feel really good, and then I'm going to feel way worse. So I try to keep the goals to 1 to 3 hard things that I can realistically do. It's still going to be a challenge to myself, but these things are also going to benefit me. So if I can get myself to do a workout, I'm definitely doing a workout. If I can't convince myself to do a workout, then I'm going to go out for a walk in nature at some point during the day. The earlier, the better, because I'm going to reap the rewards of that. There's something about nature and how we're wired that when I'm out and I'm seeing all these plants and trees and green grass and fields and flowers, it just, to feel the wind on my face, to look up at the clouds, there's something that just brings me back into this grounded state of realizing how small I am in the universe and how there are powers greater than myself at play here, and I can tap into those powers to feel strength when I feel weak. And so it's a really good reminder that brings me back into humility, and it reminds me that, it's not all about me. There's so much more to this world, and there's just something magical about nature that really combats that severity of my depression. So for every difficult thing on my list I pair it with something that I want to do that's going to feel good for myself. Not a quick fix. We'll get to those in a little bit, but so for me, that can be something like that I wouldn't normally do in the middle of a working day because it would feel ridiculous. It would feel so frivolous. So I might say, like, I'm reading this book right now, The Weight of Air. I can sit down and I can read a chapter of this book or read for 30 minutes. And that's sort of a reward for doing the hard thing. And it makes it feel like, all right, I've done the hard thing. Now I've read, and I'm already sort of boosting up my mental health. And then I go ahead and tackle the next hard thing. So maybe I'm going to go to work and I'm going to work for an hour and a half. I'm just going to see what all I can get done in an hour and a half, sort of power through that. But I'm reminding myself I'm not powering through the whole day. I like to see depression as a day that I'm a marathon runner versus a sprinter. On a regular day, I can get by with doing a lot of high intensity sprints and powering through things with so much less effort, almost seamlessly. But then when I'm depressed, everything feels so much more difficult. So I have to give myself grace. I have to be patient with myself, and I have to understand this is not going to be your most productive day, and that's okay. But it's more important to take care of myself, to look after myself, than to spiral downward by, like, if I'm going to power through the day, I'm going to make some bad food choices. I'm not going to do that workout. I'm just going to focus on work. And then later in the day, I'm probably going to binge something on TV or maybe YouTube videos to the point where I just feel like absolute trash by the end of the day. Yeah, I did the work, but I did nothing to better how I feel here mentally. And so that's sort of how those days will go. That's sort of the pace and the mindset behind them. Now, the next thing I do is I actually talk back against the negative thinking, because negative thinking is ruminating and sort of talking badly to myself, being highly critical of myself. That only sort of spirals me down further. So that's how the depression acts in my head. That's also how anxiety manifests inside my head. Just a lot of negative, sort of worst case scenarios, tearing myself apart. You still look out of shape. You're not making enough money. You're not trying hard enough. You're not smart enough. You're ugly. You're lazy. You're a failure. You're never going to achieve your dreams. As I'm hearing all of this coming in, I make a promise to myself. I'm going to be respectful and loving to myself regardless of how I feel in this moment. I have to say to myself, I'm not going to let this stuff overrun me. I'm doing the best I can. I am trying. I love myself. Even if saying these things doesn't feel true, I say it anyway. I'm not going to give up on myself. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm stronger than I feel right now. This will pass. Stay strong. You got this. During the times that I feel depressed, the quick fixes will beckon to me. They will call out to me. What am I talking about, quick fixes? Any way that I can get a massive hit of dopamine via an unhealthy source. So I could eat something like super processed and unhealthy. I could reach for drugs, alcohol. I could shop my heart out. I could overconsume on social media. The list can go on. You get the idea. These are the sort of ones that I easily fall into or have fallen into in the past, especially early in my recovery. Stimulants sound really enticing when I'm depressed. I do think it's funny that I know now alcohol is a depressant, but so many times when I was feeling depressed, I would smoke and drink, and I just had no idea that I was just further contributing to the problem in that way. And my psychiatrist said it's as if I was just pouring gasoline onto the fire by self-medicating. But when you self-medicate, it's hard to convince yourself not to self-medicate because it would blast me into such a euphoria that's indescribable. But then once the drugs ran their course, it would just be an earth-shattering crash that would leave me wanting and craving more so badly that I was off and running for years. Just that one instance could send me for years just chasing those highs. So today, that's not an option. I've been sober for 10 years. That's off the table. I don't entertain that anymore, but it's so much easier to fall into something like unhealthy eating that I've sort of, over the years, I've decided like if I'm depressed, I eat 100% clean. I eat 100% clean until I'm no longer depressed because I do like to enjoy donuts and pizza and everything like that from time to time. I just make sure that when I do so, I'm already in a good mental state. The other thing I like to remind myself of is I survived drug dependency. Drug dependency is something so dark, even compared with this debilitating depression. If I can survive that, I can survive this. And I sort of remind myself of that in the moments where I'm having the depression. And that also helps me to be kinder to myself in the moments too. Like when you were surviving that, you needed times where you were resting and you were doing things to help yourself get out of it. And that's the same with depression. I have to do things that feel a little silly in the moment to help get myself out of it and to help lift the intensity and the overpowering feeling of the depression. And every little thing I do helps to fight against it. So the next day, if I have to do it all over again, I will, until I feel like myself again. I also take anything off of my schedule that day that doesn't have a tight deadline and that I can push to another day or another day. If it doesn't have to get finished that day, I go ahead and take it off my schedule just for my own sanity and mental well-being. It allows me to focus more on doing the things that are going to bring me out of this fast. And while nutrition doesn't seem like it would have that profound of an effect, just the combination of saying kind things to myself, treating myself with respect, giving myself grace, getting my body moving, getting everything, giving myself nutrient dense whole foods, fruits, vegetables, lean meats, keeping it really simple, but preparing meals that I enjoy, nice homemade breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Anytime the quick fixes feel too tempting, I can do what they taught me in AA, which was to play the tape through. So I can think back to the last time I tried to self-medicate with pain pills and alcohol and remind myself, you overdosed. I can think back to the last time I gorged myself on like a full day of just eating total crap and not moving my body. How did that feel? Well, I felt worse. I know I felt worse. I remember how I felt. it makes it easier not to go right back into that, even though it feels tempting. It gives me enough strength to just not do that again, and to remind myself that I'm not going to stay stuck here forever, but I have to remind myself that I have to find ways to live with my depression. I have responsibilities today. I have higher expectations and standards of myself today. And so I don't want to just give into it and see what happens. Let's see if I survive or see if I try to off myself again. No, I want to put the odds in my favor of battling the depression and coming out on the other side. The other thing is, and I don't save it till last, but I did in this video, is to tell somebody. So if I'm in therapy, I will go in and tell the therapist, like, I'm depressed. Right now, I could, in these instances, I'm not currently in therapy, but I see a psychiatrist. I can call my psychiatrist and let her know that I'm depressed, or when the next appointment is, let her know I'm depressed. And last time it happened, it was the middle of winter, and I was just telling her I've lost interest in doing like the things that used to light me up, and I would be so excited, and I have all these supplies to make all these projects yet, but I don't care about any of that. I think I'm starting to get into a depression here, but I haven't been in depression for a while, so I'm not even really sure. It doesn't feel as severe, but it's still bothering me. And she had like the most obvious solution, which was, well, you're on this, which is a mood stabilizer. Maybe we could just increase your dose throughout the winter, because a lot of people go into seasonal depression. I'm like, oh, perfect. Like, let's do that. And I'm not here to recommend medications, but with the way my depression was affecting me like 85% of the time, I decided to go on a mood stabilizer, and I do not regret that choice at all. But yeah, like in the winter, we have to up the dose, and then in the spring and summer, lower it back down. And then by telling somebody like my husband, hey, the depression's back, I just don't feel like myself, but I'm going to do everything I can to fight against it. I just want you to know that I'm just, I'm struggling, but I'm not giving up in any way. I just wanted you to know. And by doing that, that is another thing that just lightens the burden off of me. It helps in some way that I can't really explain, but I know that it helps. And then that person has to be somebody that you can trust, that will listen to you and take what you're saying seriously. Like, I wouldn't just want to tell some random stranger on the street that, because it's not going to have the same effect. They're probably not going to care, and then I'm going to feel worse. So finding somebody that you can tell that is like a safe person that would support you. So my husband will more than likely check back in with me at some point during the day, or he may ask me like, is there anything I can do to help? And then I might say like, yeah, could you help with dinner tonight? It seems like a little thing, but it feels like a big help in those moments. So if anybody out there also has depression, and maybe you didn't even know what it was called, but you struggle with these feelings. I know I did for many years before I knew what it actually was. I didn't know anybody else that had it or talked about it, so I wanted to share what I know about it up until this point, and I continue to learn more throughout the years, but this is where I'm at now, the age of 41, so if anybody out there hears this and there's something on here that sort of clicks for you, I hope that it can help you too. I just know for me that not fighting back against it or pushing all the quick fixes puts me in such a dangerous spot that ultimately I'm going to pay with my life if I don't do the other things that seem hard but give me a much more rewarding outcome.